Okay, this video is going to deal with using whitespace and indentation in our source code. And so we're on number 15 on page 5 of our chapter 1 notes. You should add to your header for 15, it says whitespace and indenting. You should indicate in source code. Now whitespace and indenting in the output is another story. What we're talking about is when you're writing your Java code, how can you write your Java code to make it easier for you to edit and to read the code. And so in 15a, the effective use of whitespace horizontally and vertically makes your code easier to read and therefore easier to edit or debug. And so a couple of examples. Let's take a look at horizontal whitespace. So if you notice the difference here, here's something you haven't seen before, but there's going to be you're going to learn how to declare variables. And so if you notice right here, you've got right in this area, you have no space between the E and the equal sign and the quotation marks. And then whereas here you've got a space in before and after the equal sign. Alright, so this one of course looks easier to read, more pleasant to look at. So this is the kind of thing that's good to do. Another area is vertically, adding space vertically. So we strategically use a blank line, or in other words an extra enter. It's like hitting the enter, you hit the enter key twice to separate two groups of lines of code. Let's cut out on your notes where it says to separate two lines of code, because some people start putting a blank line between every pair of lines of code, and that's not really what we're looking at. But groups of lines of code. And so one thing to write on your notes here on number 1 here is C1 is to it's like the space that you put between paragraphs when writing an essay. So vertically, the space that you put between paragraphs when writing an essay is like what we want to be able to do. So if we look at an example, you can see here that we need to erase this. So what happens is, as you can see here, we have a kind of a section here, like a paragraph, where we're declaring variables, which we'll learn how to do later. And then notice we have a blank line. And then here you have another kind of a paragraph, and then blank line. And kind of like a paragraph. What in the world? Where'd that come from? And then a blank line. And so as we continue to look down, this is a mess. Okay, you see how you have blank lines every once in a while separating groups of code. That's what we mean by vertical space. It makes it easier to read. Now here's an example of the same kind of code, but only without vertical space, or without blank lines. And you can see how everything's compact and messy, hard to find where things start and where other things end. And so vertical space, blank lines is critical. Okay, the next thing is using the tab key for indenting. So of course in JGrasp we are going to use the tab key for indenting, as we have in our notes here, D. And the default tab stops are every 3 spaces, starting with the 4th space. So every time when you press the space or the tab key, it goes to the 4th space, and then it goes to the 7th, and then the 10th, and then the 13th, etc. Pressing the tab key takes you to the next default tab stop. So it'll always land on the 4th space, 7th, or 10th. It doesn't go a certain number of spaces. However, there are 3 spaces between each tab stop. And so this would be a good thing for you to try if you can in Java, in JGrasp. And so if we go down here just to try something out, if you just start typing, let's say public, and hit enter, okay, then we hit the tab key, and let's go back and let's do the brace, tab key, and then tab key, and so let's go public static. Now when you hit the enter, you stay indented, so it doesn't go back to the very beginning of the line. It goes to where the last indentation is. And so let's say we put a curly brace, and then again it does that, stays there, and we'll go system, maybe do another system. Okay, let's say that you need to go back to the previous indentation. Well, you always just hit the backspace 3 times, 1, 2, 3. And so there's this, and then we can go hit enter. We stay on that indentation, go back 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 backspaces. And or I guess in Max it would be delete key. So that's how that works. It makes it easier if you know that, as far as using the tab key. Backspace 3 and tab goes every 3. And we will stop with that.